Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Necron Codex. Today I'm going to have a look at Canoptek Scarabs, the sort of swarm or beastish like unit. They don't have the beast keyword, but the sort of swarm unit you're going to get with the Necrons. Now, they do have many advantages to them to make them not a bad unit to consider. How this works, I'm going to have a look at their baseline stats within the Codex, along with their weapons and any special abilities they have. After, I'm going to have a look at the sort of suggested loadouts and rules for the unit, dynasty codes, and stratagem recommendations to go with them as well. So with that, let's have a look at the Canoptek Scarabs. So the Scarabs have a baseline movement of 10, which is very, very fast for most sort of Necron units. Usually they're around the 5 mark, but this does give them a lot of mobility in the force. For weapon skill of 4+, which is, many people like 3+, but 4+ is kind of what you'd expect from them. Bliss skill 0, because they're not going to do shooting. And strength and toughness of 3, which is kind of average on this one here. I think if it was a bit higher, maybe a little bit too much to ask for. 3 wounds, which gives them a little bit more survivability. 4 attacks, which is not too bad at all. Leadership 10 and a 6+ save, which means they aren't going to get a save against many things. In terms of weapons, they've only got one, which is the Feeder Mandible, which is strength user, 0 AP and 1 damage, but it will never wound on worse than a 5+, which is not bad. Just means that, usually you're only going to get a 4+ against anything toughness 3, but anything that might be over toughness 6, then you do still have a bit of a chance to wound them. So let's speak about the unit, its sort of suggested role, because it doesn't have any sort of weapon upgrades, etc. Scarabs are a simple unit, but one that you can get a surprising amount of mileage out of, more in terms of tactically rather than the damage output that they can provide. Though being able to wound anything on a 5+ is not necessarily bad, if that is their minimum they can be, it's nice to have, but overall I don't think that causing damage is sometimes the goal when it comes to Scarabs. I just think, if you are fighting things that are toughness 6, it's going to be kind of difficult, though sometimes it might be worth it if you are going to shut down units, such as if you charge a Land Raider or something, then they're going to get a lot of mileage there. So yeah, their strengths actually lie in the fact that they are fast, they are cheap, and they are small and easy to hide. Plenty of wounds and have no real problem, getting to engage in combat with their speed. All these create a unit that covers a surprising amount of Necron's weaknesses in a force. Their cheap cost and speed being the most obvious advantage. Being able to move where you require is something sometimes Necrons lack to a degree, though there are a few units that can do it, allowing you, this gives you another unit that allows you a bit more board control. They can make an effective screen, allowing you to protect other units, which is kind of handy, especially battlefield ones that don't want to be deep striked against you, or particularly quick units that might try and rush your front line. These can essentially act as a bit of a screen to protect them. Finally, I can't stress this more than anything, but they are very, very cheap. Less than 50 points to fill the minimum for the unit. If these guys were a troop choice, then they'd almost be the guaranteed sort of troop choice to give you a very, very cheap battalion. Although this is very dangerous, it may render Necron warriors, possibly immortals, a bit redundant as well, debatably. Lastly, with their speed, being able to shut down units and hold them down is very, very good, especially if there's units in the back line or units that have rushed that maybe don't want to be engaged in combat. These guys can surprisingly charge in and just hold them down due to their high amount of wounds. Either way, there are a few weaknesses to Scarabs, mainly being their survivability is kinda extremely poor. Toughness 3 and a 6+ save means that if anything really stares at them, it's probably going to cause a fair bit of damage and could be an easy first blood / first strike unit for your opponent. This is sometimes firepower that is taken away from your other more valuable units, but I just feel that it's small arms fire that they will probably attract, and they will take damage from it quite a bit, so that is obviously not ideal. Overall, I feel that their strengths do kind of outweigh their weaknesses, but in many ways, their strengths, work out for Necron force, that they are cheap and they can fill up an Outrider detachment quite easily in case you've got some of the other great fast attack units and you just want to complete it, 50 points to be able to complete that detachment is kinda good. Next up, let's speak about their dynasty codes. The obvious one is Novok, Awakened by Murder. You can reroll failed hit rolls in the fight phase for units with this code if they are charged, were charged, or performed a heroic intervention. Alright, so Scarabs are not the best in combat, but they do a lot better than they do in ranged because they can't do anything at ranged. The other thing is that with 4 attacks base, you can easily throw, potentially if you have, the max unit I think is of 9 off the top of my head, might be, yep, 9, means you can possibly throw quite a bit of dice at your opponent, and being able to reroll the hits can be quite useful just to bump up the amount of possible wounds you can do. Overall, I don't think Scarab's strength is in combat, it's more about the versatility of other roles that they can do, which is obviously movement, positioning, and sort of hindering your opponent, but it's nice to be able to throw more dice at your opponent, which is always welcome. Next up we have Nifrik, always pronounce it wrong, Translocation Beams. If a unit with this code advances, add 6 to its movement characteristic for the movement phase instead of rolling a dice. If the unit's been affected by my will be done or wave of command, add 7 to its move characteristic instead. In addition, if a unit with this code advances, it can move across models and terrain as if they were not there. Again, I'm not usually a fan of this trait. It does require you to give up shooting and charge to a degree. However, seeing as Scarabs don't do shooting at all, and combat is not the most threatening, positioning is probably their greatest strength, and this helps, with Scarabs, getting them into place where they need to be. It works well, especially with one of the stratagems as well, to ensure that you do have the speed to get into where you need to be and to harass a unit. So overall, I think that one is actually one of the units I'd probably say this is probably strongest for this trait. But it is ultimately one that I think you need to be a very savvy player to get, to work out translocation beams really well. Stratagem recommendations, we've got a few here. Repair subroutines, 2 command points. Use the stratagem at the start of your turn before making any reanimation rolls. Select a Canoptek unit from your army that is on the battlefield. That unit gains reanimation protocols ability until the start of your turn. As mentioned in the Wraith review, this is 2 command points and is a fair price to pay for ability that potentially has no reward at all. Unlike Wraiths, I would say that the reward of bringing back Scarab units is rather lackluster compared to bringing back Wraiths. Also, as mentioned before, I personally think it should be 1 command point. It's kind of contentious whether it should be 1 command point or 2. I personally think it should be 1. The rest of the army can already do it and is only for 1 turn. Even worse, if you do fail to bring any back, that is a very expensive 2 command points. I've yet to use it personally on Scarabs because, quite frankly, I think the reward is just, outweighed by the cost and the risk that there is there. But there may be times where you just need to bump up the unit, so it is kind of worth remembering. Next up we have Adoptive Subroutines, which is 1 command point. Use the stratagem after a Canoptek unit from your army is advanced. This unit can shoot or charge this turn. With Scarabs, this can be useful just to ensure that they get to charge, as this is done after you have advanced. So if you get a good advance roll or you're using translocation beams, then you can just go ahead with it. And if you do get a bad advance roll, you don't need to commit to it because it is after you make the roll. Not so much game changer, I would say, but it can be extremely useful in situations where you need to get that unit to charge. Handy with Nifrik, as you can guarantee the extra 6, as mentioned, but only 1 unit will benefit from this. So if it's a throw up between these and Wraiths, Wraiths is pretty much going to win. And lastly, we have Self-Destruction, which is 1 command point. Use a stratagem after Canoptek Scarab from your army piles in before they make close combat attacks. Select a Canoptek Scarab Swarm model in your unit, and then pick an enemy unit within 1 inch of it. Your Canoptek Scarab Swarm model is destroyed. Remove it from the battlefield and roll a d6. On a 2+, the enemy unit picked suffers d3 mortal wounds. Once again, not a game changer stratagem. One to bear in mind though, because sometimes you do need that sudden spike in guaranteed wounds, although this is not guaranteed. Fighting a dangerous HQ, maybe absolutely need to drop it, and it only has maybe 1 wound left, and you really want to shoot it, then yeah, spending command point would be very helpful. This can be useful. I mean, a single base, losing that, no problem. But it still may fail to explode on a 1. and may even only cause 1 mortal wound. I have, I find it a little bit lackluster, but I have been in a situation where this has been absolutely necessary. Quite often I've sometimes had comments from people saying, oh, why didn't you blow up one of your scarab swarms? And it may be the case I've forgotten, which has proved a little bit costly. So it's maybe not one that's game changing, but certainly worth thinking about in the odd situation where you're like, I really need to cause, guaranteed, as close to guaranteed mortal wounds as I can get, and really just get a spike in damage. So that's kind of it for the Canoptek Scarabs. A simple unit, but one that does offer a bit of versatility. I can't stress that being cheap and also being quick does make a big benefit from them. People do use them sometimes to sort of hide them from line of view, which does help as well, and sort of just hinder your opponent in a variety of ways. So I think they are definitely worth it, but don't expect them to cause the damage that is sometimes necessary. Other units may do that. Scarabs cover strengths in other ways. So thanks again for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. What do you think of Scarabs? Are they just passing them, take other units in the fast attack slot, because it is a fantastic one for Necrons, or do you think there is quite an obvious space for them as well? Check us out on social media to see the upcoming projects. I've just completed my first 2 Mauler Fiends. I don't know if I've put photos up yet, but we'll be doing soon, and they are looking really happy with them, considering I'm just quite new to painting. I'm delighted, and I'd love to hear people's comments on them as well. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.